everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And we are really excited today. We are talking with one of the actresses of this weekend's movie, My Dreams of You. We're talking with Skyler Samuels. And Skyler, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Rachel.
Yeah. So this is your first time on our show. So we'd like to get to know our actresses. And so tell us a little bit about how you got started. You got started young, correct?
Yeah, I started when I was like 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now 30, so 20
Yeah.
plus years of.
You're a veteran.
I'm a veteran. It's weird when like SAG is like, congratulations on your 20 plus years. I'm like, that seems impossible. But yeah, I started young. I grew up in Los Angeles, so that was just kind of around,
Mm-hmm.
people acted and played pretend for a living. And I was like, yes, let's do that. That seems super fun.
Yeah.
And I still feel that way at 30. So I've just kept it going.
So were your parents in the business or?
No, not really. My dad definitely wasn't. He was a US Marshal, so completely
Yeah.
unrelated to all of this. And then my mom worked in like unscripted reality news.
Oh.
So she was kind of like peripherally in the world, but not in like the space that I'm in. But the first overlap for a job that I had, and the way I kind of like accidentally fell into it in the first place was my mom was working at Access Hollywood, like way back in the day.
Oh.
And they had hired a kid correspondent to go and interview the Harry Potter kids for the second Harry Potter movie. And like the night before this like big junket in Chicago that they had set up, the person they hired bailed, like she couldn't do it. And my mom's boss was like, what are we going to do? Like, we have to send someone. It's Harry Potter. We've got all this, like, on the line. We've got to figure something out. And it was like in the 11th hour, everyone was like scrambling, trying to come up with what to do. And my mom's boss was like, wait, didn't you say Skyler wants to be an actor? My mom was like, yeah, but she's 7. She wanted to be an ice princess 2 years ago. Like, I don't know that she really knows what she wants to do, like, for a living. She's a child. And he was
Yeah.
like, well, maybe Skyler could do it. And my mom was like, okay. Cause it was like, what else did they have to do?
Yeah.
So she came to me and was like, okay, I'm going to offer you your first part. And I was like, really? This is so exciting. She's like, yes, you're going to pretend to be a reporter. And I was like, okay, I can do that. She's like, Nancy O'Dell. Remember, this was like back in the day when it was like Pat O'Brien and Nancy
Yeah.
O'Dell hosting Access Hollywood, like early 2000s, just like, it was a time. But she was like, just pretend to be Nancy. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And so that was kind of like my first job because obviously I'm not a journalist. I was in the 3rd grade or something.
Uh-huh.
And I went to Chicago with my mom and I got to interview the, lead kids of Harry Potter, which was super fun. The pictures of us just like as tiny people with like baby teeth and braces is like so precious. They're hilarious to see now.
Were you
But
like
I had,
starstruck meeting the Harry Potter?
I like,
Yes.
I was, but I also was like, but I'm here to work. I was like so serious and I like didn't
Yeah.
want to let my mom down. So I was like, I'm, a professional reporter, even though I'm
Uh-huh.
7 and I sit in a chair, my feet don't touch the ground. Like I'm a little
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
And so I did that. And then that kind of like took off and kind of began that trend of like seeing kids on red carpets and that kind of thing. So for about a year, I would do like all the, red carpets for all the kids' movies. I even got a job with American Idol. I used to like back when they had the Coca-Cola lounge backstage, like this is when they had 2 hosts still. Like it was Ryan and then that
Oh,
other
very
guy,
beginning.
Paul. I mean,
Yeah.
this is like early days. Like I said, I'm aging myself, but like early 2000s,
Yeah. Yeah.
like Kelly Clarkson was competing like
Yeah.
year
Yeah.
one.
First season.
Yeah, first season and would like, do like hosting stuff with them backstage. And it was just so fun. And I enjoyed meeting all these people and kind of the spontaneous nature of the whole thing. And then from there, I actually started to like audition and, do like actual acting parts
Yeah.
for a kid. But it started with my mom. And then after
Yeah.
that, we haven't worked together since. But it was a fun way to get started
Yeah.
for sure.
Did
Yeah.
that get you on sort of the attention of because you did a bunch of Nickelodeon projects, a bunch of Disney Channel projects? Like, did that kind of get you on that path?
It did. I think
Yeah.
there was like, who is this like tiny child walking around town with like a stepladder and a microphone, like interviewing people because I was so short. I was 7 and
Yeah.
I would be interviewing grown-ups. So I had like a little stepladder that I carried with me and a big microphone. And I would like
Yeah.
set it up and climb on my ladder and interview people. And it was a little bit of like, who is this like little person going around town
Yeah.
and doing this? And that did kind of start it. I feel like Drake and Josh was my first like acting role.
It's the first one on IMDb listed.
It is, but it's so funny too, because that though was the first thing I did. And maybe at that point I was like 8 or 9. To this day, it's one of the things I get recognized the most for. And I don't even understand how people can like, I'm like, do I look the same? Like that was so long ago,
Yeah.
like 22, 23 years ago. And it's so funny to me that of like all the things I've done, like that one really seems to come up all the time. I think it's so funny, but it was
Okay.
a great experience. And,
You're
you
like,
know,
great. I guess it takes the pressure off. You peak at 8. Like, what?
yeah, I guess. It's also funny because I guess it's like that generation who grew up with those shows, people who are my age, maybe a little older, who were like watching those shows when they were on. It's kind of like those seminal shows that like really stay with you your whole life. Like
Uh-huh.
it's like how I'll always feel an affinity for Hilary Duff because I was like there for the Lizzie McGuire era. Like that was like my show. And so
Mhm.
there's just like certain shows I think that like stick with you. And
Yeah.
even as a grown up, you're like, I remember every episode of the show,
Well,
even though I
it's
haven't
true.
seen it in 20 years.
It's true. I mean, I would be like the generation before. So for me, it would be like Boy Meets World,
Oh,
Clarissa Explains It
yes,
All, that kind of that
absolutely.
era, more.
But it's just like
It
one of
does.
those
It
things. It's
stays
like you
with you.
have it, like it just stays in your head, like cataloged forever. And so in that way, it's kind of fun that I got to be like a little component of
Hmm.
that for people
Yeah.
who grew up
Yeah.
loving those shows.
That's
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
so when you wanted to transition from being a teen star or a child star, was that part of the reason why you did the Scream Queens? Like kind of trying to do something a little bit darker or
I mean,
that?
kind of. It wasn't really so much
American
on
Horror
purpose
Story
as
too.
yeah, that was really so scary. It was so scary I couldn't watch it actually. I've never seen it. It was
Yeah.
terrifying. I was like, this is so scary. I don't even think I can watch it back. People are like, but you were there on the day. Like, it's not real. And like those actors are so good. It was so convincing. I don't even think I could suspend reality.
Yeah.
Like I can't.
I can be
I,
I can be a horror wimp as well. I've been
well,
trying since I became a film critic, and I've been trying to boost up my my pedigree as far as watching some horror and stuff. But I still
it's
I
hard.
still can be a
I'm
wimp.
such a scaredy cat. I completely understand. And the irony is like so much of what I've done in the last like several years has been like horror, like that kind of like sci-fi dark genre. And it's like the thing that like I can make it no problem, but to sit down and watch it is like another thing entirely.
Yeah.
Um, but I think, like Scream Queens came about because just sort of aging out of the kid teen world. American Horror Story, I feel like, was right after I did the Duff. So those were kind of like the transitional movies. Like I did the Duff
And you were a mean girl in that, right? Or were you
in the Duff.
in the Duff, or were you her friend?
No, I was a friend.
It's been a bit since I saw that one. But
Yeah.
yeah, so you were one
It
of
was
her
like
friends.
Bianca Santos and I were Mae Whitman's best friends, and then Bella Thorne was
Okay.
our,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, like mean girl. Even though she's a sweetheart in real life. But that was kind of like the last like high school
Yeah.
thing that I did. And then, you know, American Horror Story, going to Scream Queens, you know, it was about a girl who was in a sorority in college. At the time, I was a girl who was in a sorority in college. So it just kind of felt like, okay, like this is kind of where I'm at in life. Obviously, my sorority experience in real life was very different than that which was portrayed
I
on the
hope
show.
so.
Yeah, as I would hope for anybody. But it was just kind of growing up and
Yeah.
aging up with roles that happened. And, you know, I'm grateful for those opportunities because it can be kind of a weird moment to transition to sometimes when you've like worked as a kid and then coming into it as an adult, because people think of you as a kid or they know you that way. And sometimes it's hard for people to kind of reimagine you older, even though like we're growing up every day. When you grow up on screen, sometimes it's like hard for people to conceptualize that. So, you know, those roles in my early 20s kind of helped get me to adulthood on camera.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you got the role for Aurora Teagarden, that must have been pretty exciting, but maybe a little overwhelming. This established character people were used to seeing, or as Candace. Like, how did you feel about that?
It was really it was a surprise that it came my way. I was super, super grateful and really excited, but also was like, do they have the right person? Like, are they sure? This seems like a huge, huge job to step into.
Yeah.
But I do love a challenge. So I was like, okay, you know, we're going to make the most of it. It was a little intimidating and unusual to come into something that was so established, and they had done 18 movies before. So to then do a prequel series, it's like they've already made 18 of these movies. Like this is a really, you know, long-standing fan
Yeah.
base. And there was a lot of suspicion or hesitation, or are we
Yeah.
sure about this? Like, you know, from the diehard fans, some people were really excited right away, and others were like, we'll see, you know.
Hmm.
And so I really wanted to make sure that I delivered for that fan group and, you know, just that audience that's been so loyal to that story and those characters all these years. And I have to give so much credit to my friend and who I, you know, call my work wife, Jessica Harmon. She's our director, and
Hmm.
she's directed the first three movies that we've done for Aurora.
Hmm.
And her vision for it, I think, was really clever and fun. And it felt new in a way that was exciting, but
Yeah.
familiar in a way that was like, ah, yes, like these are like the essence of these characters, but younger. So I feel like she found the perfect tone to kind of make it feel new and familiar at the same time.
Hmm.
And, you know, I think getting to focus on the Arthur Aurora relationship is really fun, because that was kind of the big question mark in the original movies. We hear like in the first movie that they like used to date, but like we never really hear more about it. But it's like, well, they have a lot of chemistry, and it's like, what happened there? So to get to go back in time and really get to explore that and flesh that out, it's definitely it's more like love story heavy, but it's
Hmm.
very
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Well, it
Yeah.
must have been fun to work with Mary Lou Henner, legend. Love her
Yeah,
so
she is
much.
a legend. She's super fun. She's the most energy of any person I've ever met at any age. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. She's just like here for the party all the time. And obviously that memory bank is
Oh,
invaluable when you can
unbelievable.
ask her anything, especially
Yeah.
about like the original movies. She can draw on a lot of that, and, you know, is really very helpful with all of that. But
Yeah. The only thing
yeah,
that made me upset about the first movie is I'm a big Madison Smith fan. I was like, why?
yeah,
Why do I have to be?
I know.
Like he has such bad luck with these Hallmark mysteries. I'm like, come
You're like, why are you always the bad
on,
guy?
like why?
I know. I keep saying like we've had some really fun sort of like guest star co-stars
Yeah.
for each of the movies. And we've got the other two, which I think are coming out later
Yeah,
this
and I was gonna ask you
fall.
about it if you knew, because I had heard, because I talked to Jordan about them, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, and I had heard that they were coming out soon, but we hadn't gotten an official date
I
from
feel like I
Hallmark.
heard it was October, but now I'm like, don't
Okay.
quote me on that, because I think so.
Yeah.
Um, but if I'm mistaken, I'm sorry if I've misled
Yeah, I don't think
anybody,
it's been
but I
officially
think it's
announced,
like
but
fall-ish,
yeah.
autumn adjacent, somewhere in there, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think hopefully, they'll probably like rerun the first one
Yeah.
because we did 2 and 3 at the beginning of this year. So hopefully
Okay.
they both, I don't know if they're going to come out back to back or if they'll stagger them. But the new ones we did are so fun. Like they really do get better with each movie. But I
Oh,
keep saying
fun.
like some of our favorite people are people who've been like bad guys or like loosely
Yeah.
associated with a crime. And my hope is that in a future movie, like Aurora has to kind of re-engage with a lot of these people. So like the Madisons or some of these other characters who like we see passing in and out throughout the movies where it's like, what happened to those people that like Aurora will have to kind of like go back and,
Yeah.
see a lot of those familiar faces because we have so much fun making it. It would be great to bring a lot of those folks back.
Yeah. Well, I'm really curious since you've done a little bit of everything in your career. I'm curious, what is it like on like a big production like the Meg 2? Like, what's it like being a part of something like that?
It's it's kind of like what I imagine going to outer space is like, because you're just like, I am so small. And
Right.
this world is so enormous. This universe is so enormous. How am I even a part of this? That was like really how I felt like walking onto the soundstage that first day. And I just remember like not even understanding like how this was possible. It was so big, both in scope, like the cast was big, the sets were big, the sharks are big, like everything was so big. The submarines that they built that Jason Statham and his team use in the movie, they're like full on like theme park rides. Like they operate, they set on fire, they shake, they do all these things. Like it's practical magic. I mean, obviously there's a lot of CGI and that kind of stuff in those movies, but there's a lot that's done practically that is so impressive. Like the craftsmanship of these like wild ideas that come together and you can just see with your own eyes is like I feel like a little kid and just so
Yeah.
exciting. And that's also a funny one because so much of the movie is, with the shark that you don't see until the movie is edited. So
Uh-huh.
it is kind of funny, like, when I got eaten by a shark, it just was me on like a little fishing rod and a guy just, pulls
Oh
me
my
back and
God.
I tumble into
Yeah.
space. It's like, I don't know. And then, to see the finished product, it's like, well,
Yeah.
that's so crazy that that's what that looks like.
Yeah. Did they
Um,
give you any kind of idea, like a visual or rough sketch, or kind of this is what's going to end up looking like at all?
Well, something that I thought was really cool, I loved our director for the Meg too. His name's Ben Wheatley, and he's awesome, super dry, funny guy,
Uh-huh.
and just like has a real knack for that kind of like action comedy genre. And he had the entire movie animated, like it looked like The
Oh,
Sims.
wow.
So they
Yeah.
would like play us a sequence so we could see, our little like sim like characters and the sim like shark and the whole thing so we could kind of get a sense of what it would look like. And that to me was so impressive, but also monumentally helpful because you're dealing with so many elements that are kind of otherworldly or like I don't have a real life reference for what it's like to interface with a megalodon. I've never seen
Yeah.
one in real life. So,
Right.
there's some things you can draw on in this line of work. And then sometimes you're like, okay, no, we could use a little inspiration to like imagine what this might be. So the fact that he did that was really helpful. So, we'd sort
Mhm.
of rehearse a scene, watch that, make sure we kind of knew where we would be in the world, relative to the shark or the submarines or the other moving pieces. So that was really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I would
Yeah,
think because I don't know, just help it feel more sincere of a performance than just like green screen.
absolutely. It is
Yeah.
very helpful. And that was such a fun group of people. That was a blast. And it was hilarious because it's like set in coastal China in the summer and we filmed it in London in the winter. So like we're out like,
Yeah.
they've got like a 2-story like water soundstage that's outside at Leavesden Studios, and it's like rural, snowy, like outskirts of London in the background. And they're like, "We'll paint it out, like it'll be sunny." And I'm like, "This is crazy." We're all like, shivering because it's like snowing and cold, but we're like in shorts and tank tops because it's like supposed to be summer. Like this really is movie magic because this is so crazy that like somehow this snowy, blistery day is
Yeah.
gonna look like hot, sunny China.
You're like, it's the opposite of a
Um,
Hallmark Christmas movie.
it is the opposite. I just
They're
think it's
filmed in
so
the
funny.
summer and
Movies,
so-
yeah, I don't know why we do that. We never film them at the time that they're set for some reason, but
That's cool. That's cool. I
Yeah.
always love learning how things are made. I just think it's interesting, the behind the
Yeah,
scenes. I think it's cool.
absolutely.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's Factor Meals. Warmer, sunnier days are calling. Fuel up for them with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine. What are you waiting for? With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. Crush your wellness goals this month with dietitian-approved meals and ingredients you can trust. Make your day delicious from breakfast to dessert. Stay fueled with easy, nutritious options. Treat yourself to restaurant-quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon. Keep kitchen time to a minimum. Factor meals are ready in 2 minutes. No shopping, prepping, cooking, or cleaning up. Enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. Head to factormeals.com/hallmarkies50 and use code hallmarkies50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code hallmarkies50 at factormeals.com/hallmarkies50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Definitely check out Factor Meals. We know you'll love them. So you have My Dreams of You coming out this
Yes.
weekend. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about this movie and what it's about?
So My Dreams of You is a romantic comedy road trip movie. And I play a girl named Grace who's an aspiring but not so successful writer, who's kind of just floating between temp jobs, can't really get her stride in life. And I start having these reoccurring dreams with this guy, and they're so vivid, those dreams where you wake up being I could have sworn that happened. It felt so real. And I can't figure out where I know him from. And anyone who will listen, I'm talking to about this guy and these dreams I'm having. And everyone's like, okay, Grace, you're a little nuts. We love you. You're a writer. You're a little crazy though. This is just let it go. You're just being imaginative. And basically what we learn in Grace's relentless pursuit to figure out who this guy is that she's dreaming of, that there's this entity called Dream Central, which is kind of like the North Pole, but they're in charge of everybody's dreams and subconscious. And so basically it's this little organization of sleep elves, if you will, who have access to everybody's memories. And so everyone is assigned a person. So if someone was assigned you, Rachel, in Dream Central, it would be key memories from when you were a kid or in high school and all these things. And they'll mix and match your memories. And then that creates your dream for the day. So you have all these people who are in charge of making your dreams. And an intern, played by the very adorable Cece. Cece is a new intern. She's super bright eyed, and she mixes up 2 tapes from 2 different people, which is a big no-no. Whatever you do, do not cross-contaminate memories. And she does. And so she ends up putting a memory of a guy named Michael in my dreams. And Michael has me in his dreams. And so she is basically in so much trouble. And it's sort of the butterfly effect, where it's whatever happens, you're not supposed, these people can't meet. They can't know this. If this happens, we have to undo it because it can change kind of the way fate is supposed to play out. We're not supposed to disrupt the system. And so basically I'm on this pursuit to find the guy, and I piece together who he is in one of these dreams, and I find him in real life.
Yeah.
And in real life, you realize he's has no idea who I am. So I don't tell him how I found him or how I know him.
It's like a positive Hallmark version of Freddy Krueger.
Kind of. Yes. And so it's she's trying not to seem crazy.
Yeah.
Because she shows up and she's like, hey, it's me. He's like,
yeah.
do I know
but he
you?
will have seen you. right?
He will, but he doesn't remember. So he doesn't remember when he sees me.
Okay.
So Grace has a different recollection. And what ends up happening is they meet in real life. She kind of makes a fool of herself because she comes in hot thinking that, he knows her. He doesn't. And she's like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. I cannot believe I just did this. But then they run into each other again and they just get to talking. And next thing you know, they end up on this kind of epic train cross country adventure together. And all the while this is happening, the dream police are chasing her, trying to get her to like erase her memory of this guy. And she's basically like, catch me if you can. I love this
Oh,
guy.
they're
I'm
trying
going
to
to
do
follow him.
like the Men in Black, like hold up the
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay.
And
I've seen it.
it's adorable, our dream police, because they kind of have this like vintage like 60s aesthetic, so they're like in these like funny little outfits just like chasing me across America, like trying to get me to forget about this man I'm in love with. And it's really fun. It's an
That
adventure
sounds
movie. I mean,
really
it's
fun.
it's very fun and it's like big in scope. I think we had like almost 30 different locations in the movie, so like
Wow.
it goes a lot of places. And what's also really exciting is it has original music. So
Oh,
my co-star, Kapil Talwalkar, Cap, as we call him, Cap is a wonderful musician in real life. So um, he wrote the music for his character Michael, who is a musician in the movie. He wrote original music, and it's awesome. He wrote a
oh,
song
that's
for
really
Michael that
cool.
was like based on all these different moments in the script, and he used pieces of dialogue really cleverly, and it was amazing. And he played me the song before we started filming, and I was like, this is awesome. Like, they're going to put this in the movie. And he goes, well, no, I didn't tell anybody about it. And I was like, what? Like, we have to tell someone. This is so good. He's like, well, I don't know. It was just like something I did, like to get into character, but I didn't want to be like presumptuous. And I was like, no, no, no. We got to play this song. Like, people need to hear this. So I literally like stopped what I was doing. I called our producer and director to come and meet us. And Cap had known me for like a day and a half. And he was like, who is this enthusiastic, crazy woman who's just like so emphatic about this? And our producer and director heard it and loved it. And Hallmark heard it and loved it. And
Oh, that's so
it,
cool.
it's really cool. And it's kind of like
Yeah.
the centerpiece of the movie. So that was really fun. And, getting to help him with that a little bit was really collaborative and fun. And we had a really great time making it. It was a very unique experience.
Well, that's so cool too, because it sounds like your character is like a real go-getter like that. So in a way, it is kind of like your character, playing your character.
It kind of is, because she's
Yeah.
trying to help him with his music in the movie, and then in real life,
Uh-huh.
Skyler is helping Cap get his music in the movie. It's sort of funny. We walked right into that one. That was
Yeah.
completely unintentional, but something to be said for playing a little bit of yourself
Yeah.
sometimes. It can happen.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
Well, I was curious. So when you're filming the dream segments, was that different? There's like a different type of cinematography, different style, different look to them, a different feel than
Yeah.
the
So
real segments.
a very astute question. Yes, there is definitely a sort of like lens with which dreamland is kind of
Yeah.
captured, like very like they have like the fog machine. It's very
Uh-huh.
like kind of cloudy and kind of has this hint to it that's just like real life but a little different. And then like things are happening that don't totally make sense, but that like in
Right.
a dream would happen, where you're like, we're not even going to address that because it's a dream, and like weird things happen, and like we'll
Yeah.
just keep going. So you definitely do get both of those pieces. I will say our cinematography on this movie was really impressive. And the movie is beautiful. I mean, it's like very, even the real life stuff is so dreamy, like lots of light flares, and like it's got components where it like reminds me of The Notebook almost, like this very like romanticized, dreamy kind of aesthetic. So even real life feels a little dreamy, because it's just how Grace sees the world. So I love that the movie is kind of captured and looks like her point of view, which is really fun.
Yeah, it
Um,
sounds really whimsical and
yeah,
yeah.
it is. I kept saying it kind of reminded me of like, it has like a dose of 500 Days of Summer. It's got like a little bit of that vibe. It's got like a
Uh-huh.
little bit of Elf as far as like, elf people in the real world, dream people in the real world. But then it does pull in some other more like heartfelt, you know, components where like it is a comedy, but there's definitely some real hard moments in the movie for these two people, because you're
Yeah.
watching two aspiring, struggling artists try to figure out how to follow their dreams and go after what they want, and also not blow up their personal lives and just survive their 20s. All very difficult things to do.
Yeah.
All while we have this other crazy like dream component happening. So it's fun.
Was this your first lead in a rom-com?
I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. And it's so funny because this is the type of movie I watch religiously. Like it's my all-time favorite genre. Like I'm a
Yeah.
diehard for it. And it's the thing I've been wanting to do the most that I've gotten to do the least. Because I feel like they're coming back. Like I feel like there was a minute where people were like, we don't want rom-coms
Yeah.
anymore. Like it was all sci-fi, or it was vampires, or it was, murder stuff. I was in half of those shows, so I'm completely responsible. Like I totally get it. But like I feel like thanks to
Yeah.
Hallmark, especially like
Yeah.
the rom com is like making a comeback, which is really great. So I'm very excited that I got to do this, because this is the type of movie I love to watch. And it's definitely a type of movie I love to make. It's so much fun. And I love it.
Did you did they just call you for the role? Or did you have to do a self-tape or anything like that?
In this case, they called me. I
Yeah.
think but it came about very last minute. Like I had been home from BC, where we shoot the Aurora movies, for like maybe a week. Um,
Wow.
and they were like, "Hey there, uh, you want to go back to Canada?" I was like, "Why, did I forget something?" They're like, "Nope, we got another one." Um, and so I'm not sure if like someone fell out. Like there was a little bit of
Yeah.
chaos going into it, where I definitely think there was probably somebody else attached, and they inherited me.
Yeah.
But I think it all kind of worked out for the best, and it ended up being a really fun, unexpected adventure, both the movie itself and me taking the job
Yeah.
and going to Ottawa to make this movie. I feel like by the time I got the job and got to Ottawa, it was like within 2 weeks. Like it was very fast.
Yeah.
So kind of just jumped right into this world, but it was great.
When you're matched up with someone like Kapil, like how do you kind of build that chemistry and get that working relationship going?
You know, it's so crazy because you have these movies, in Hallmark movies, we shoot usually in 15 days. So they're
Right.
so fast. And you don't usually get a lot of time to, know the person beforehand, or kind of figure a lot of that out. So it's a little bit of just like a roll of the dice every time. Like, I don't know who this person's going to be, but like, I hope it works out. And I've been very lucky that I've had excellent, leading men in my life. Like my last few gigs, I've just had wonderful, they've all set the bar so high. I love them all. Um, and with Cap, like we just got on so well. Like we met and it was like, oh yeah, if we met in real life, we would be friends. And we are friends now. But we got along so well. And it was his first foray into the Hallmark world. And we had so much to collaborate on. There was a last minute addition to the movie where a dance number was added.
Oh
And
wow.
Cap is not a dancer, and I am not a dancer, but we were going to learn how to dance. And we did not have like a lot of time. I think we had to learn like an entire dance sequence in like 48 hours. Like it was crazy. It gives me a newfound respect for Dancing with the Stars because I'm like, that is so hard. I do not understand how those people are doing that. But
Never.
I still can't. And I did and barely made it. Like it's such an art form where I'm like, I need lots of practice before I'm ready to like
Yeah.
hit a dance floor somewhat professionally. Um, but Cap and I, having to like learn how to dance and then helping him with his song that he had in the movie and, working on stuff with our scripts, like ways to, punch up the dialogue or do these different things. We just had so much fun collaborating together. That was a stroke of good luck that we are friends in real life and got along so well. And it just worked so perfectly for the characters of Grace and Michael that was just one of those things you never know. But when you get lucky like that, it's such a blessing.
So what do you think the Hallmarkies fans will love most about this movie? What do you think sets it apart?
I think what the Hallmarkies will love is that it looks and feels really different than most Hallmark movies I've seen. Like I said, it's like a road trip adventure movie. So it's really big in scope. There's definitely this heavy, whimsical element to it. And the original music component, I think, is really, really exciting. And it's definitely going to stand out. Like the music is great. And it's like a song that you would like if you heard it out of context from the movie. But the fact that it's like woven into the movie in such an intricate, beautiful way is really exciting. And it doesn't really resemble a Hallmark movie in some ways. Like it kind of feels like it has those components of a Hallmark movie that we love, but it's different. It's big and there's dance numbers, there's singing, there's magical people, there's trains, there's planes, there's automobiles. Like we hit every box. So it's just a big adventure in the world of Hallmark. So it definitely is packing a little bit more of like an epic love story punch.
That sounds
But it's really
really fun.
fun.
Yeah,
It is. It's so fun.
especially with all the dreams and that. I think I'm looking into music. I didn't even know that I had songs. So that makes me, yeah, or has a song. That
Yeah.
makes me more intrigued for sure.
Yeah. It's really, really fun. And it was so much fun to like get to play someone who I think is closer to myself than like most roles I've gotten to do. So like really getting to have my own sort of like goofy, dorky sense of humor kind of like merged into Grace. And, I think it's also a side of me that is closest to me that I don't know that a lot of people have gotten to see because I haven't really had the chance to play a role like Grace that's maybe a little closer to Skyler than most. So
Yeah.
I think that might be kind of like a fun insight too. If anyone kind of wondered what I was like in real life, it's a lot like that,
Yeah.
different in some ways, but heavy overlap between the two.
Oh, that's great. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that would add to the authenticity of the whole performance and the relationship too. If you
Yeah.
felt that
And like I
connection.
said, like Cap was a musician for years and, like
Mhm.
definitely had his struggling musician phase before he found success with his
Yeah.
band and with acting. So the two of us really had like walked these walks of these characters not that long ago. So it's definitely very close to home and, pieces of who we were not that long ago. So
Yeah.
it's, yeah.
Well, great. We're definitely looking forward to it. So we like to end our interviews with some fun, quick, rapid fire, get to know you questions.
Okay.
So our first question is, what is the best ice cream flavor?
Dark chocolate.
Okay. What's your
Yeah.
favorite color?
Blue.
What music are you into?
Currently, Taylor Swift. Loving it.
Ah, Swifty.
Yeah.
You,
Yeah. That anti-hero song is so catchy. I just love it. Can't
yeah.
get enough. Love
Do
it.
you have a
Yeah.
favorite era of the eras?
I kind of like whatever's happening right now. Like I feel like the
Okay.
era of all the eras
Or
is like
era.
pretty great, but I'm loving that anti-hero. And I'm also really, really into Sabrina Carpenter. Her
Mm.
song, Please, 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 is so catchy. Those two songs I like cannot get out of my head. I love them.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Okay. What is your go-to date night food?
Thai food.
No, good.
Yeah.
What is your go-to date night activity if you're going out doing something? Dream
If
date.
wow. Usually like some kind of like really fun culinary thing. Like my husband and I are big foodies. So
Uh-huh.
like something that's just like, let's go to a restaurant and eat for like 3 hours and like try a bunch of different stuff. And then like you go home in a food coma. Like that is definitely
So you're
our
going to the
dream date
Thai food
scenario.
and you're gonna binge it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
like, like one of those places that does like a crazy tasting menu. Like we love that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
that'd be fun.
Um, yeah, that's always
Yeah.
fun for us to do.
Well, and LA is the perfect place for something like that.
LA is, we actually
Yeah.
live in Georgia. So
Oh,
we're
you do?
in,
Okay.
yeah, so we're in Georgia, but we have, I mean, people know how to cook and they know how to
Oh,
eat
yeah.
here. Like they're
Yeah.
really, they got it down. So we've had many delicious adventures and dates in the time that we've been here.
That's true. I did a trip a couple of years ago to Atlanta and I did a food tour while I was on this trip. It was
Yeah.
so fun, so
Oh,
delicious.
I mean, I spent
So
like my
good.
mid 20s like working and living and eating in Atlanta. And I have like the longest list when people come to Atlanta of like, what should I
Yeah.
go to? I'm like, here by neighborhood, like this is what you should try. This bar is great. Order this
Yeah.
restaurant's great. Because I loved it. And I'm so glad you got to experience that because it's
Yeah.
such a joyful way to get to know the city.
Yeah. So hit Skylar up for your Atlanta recommendations, travel
That's it. Yeah,
recommendations.
exactly. I got
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Okay, good. Which do you like better, dogs or cats?
Dogs,
Okay. Which do you like better, beaches or mountains?
beaches.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Which I live in by mountains, so
I
perfect.
do too. I realized the irony as I said that. I'm like, I live in the mountains, but I prefer a beach. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your favorite holiday to celebrate?
Christmas.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
hard to beat Christmas because it's like a whole season,
I know, and
not
it's
just a
so
day.
fun and like,
Yeah.
yeah, just like the whole spirit of getting into
Yeah.
it. Like all of December is fun,
Yeah. We got to
you
get you
know?
in a Christmas movie. We got to make
Well,
this happen.
we're working on it. So
Yes.
hopefully that's somewhere in the future slate of Skylar Hallmark projects.
Yes. Very good. Okay, last question. What is your favorite Hallmark or romantic movie?
This is like picking a favorite family member. I don't
I
know if I
know.
could, but I would say A Paris Proposal, which is really cute.
Oh, yeah, that one was good.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that
it was
one.
really
Yeah,
cute.
good
Yeah,
choice.
it's got the whimsy and the humor. I am a
Mhm.
little biased. Jessica Harmon directed it, and I
Oh,
think
okay.
it's, so I'm a touch biased, but
Yeah.
I love that movie. And, I love Paris and
Yeah.
just
No, it
the
was a
whole
good
thing
one.
is, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great one.
Yeah. Very good. You did it. You answered all the questions.
Woohoo!
So thank you so much for coming to talk with us. I really appreciate it. And if people want to follow you on socials or anything like that, how do they do that?
Yes, they can follow me on Instagram. I'm at Skyler Samuels.
Great.
Just my name. Yeah.
Great. I'll have that in the description. And thanks again for talking with us.
Oh, thanks, Rachel.
I'd like to thank Skylar for coming on the podcast. This was so much fun. I really enjoyed talking with her, getting to know her. She was great and it made me really excited for the movie. So yay, that's coming up this weekend. My Dreams of You. So you should definitely all check it out and let me know in the comments what you think about all the things we talked about. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Check that out. Also, make sure you're following the podcast, Hallmarkies Pod, and Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. Really, really, really appreciate that. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate that so much. We also have our Patreon group, which is the biggest way you can support us. It really, really helps us a lot. And we have the merch store. So take a look at that. There's some Aurora Tea Garden inspired merch in the merch store. So check that out. And thanks again to Skylar. Really appreciate it. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.